everyone, it's Ethony, and today I am geeking out about The Last Jedi. And yes, this is my lightsaber. Of course it's purple. I built this in Disneyland when I went, and it's a classic Obi-Wan Kenobi hilt, and I love it. I'm going to put it down very gently. Okay, I don't want to be holding it the entire time. So today I'm talking about The Last Jedi. It's my second video in my Geeking Out series. Massive spoilers. I'm going to be talking about all aspects of the movie. So if you haven't seen it and you want things to remain a mystery or at least not ruined, please don't watch this video. Go see it and then come back if you want to watch me geek out about it. So I actually have seen the movie twice. I saw the movie the day before it came out. I have like a late night screening. And then I went and saw it again a couple of days ago. I wanted to see it sooner, the second time, but I got really, really sick. And then we had Christmas and all sorts of stuff. So I have only really been able to do this now. The reason why I went and saw it twice before I wanted to talk about it was I missed a couple of things. And I also, so much happens in this movie. I really felt like I came out of that and I went to see it with my sister. And she just looked at me and said, God, a lot happened in that film. And I was like, yep. Like, it actually took me a few hours to come down after watching it the first time. I mean, I'm a very big Star Wars fan. So there was a lot to delve into. And then I watched a lot of videos online on YouTube around the movie. And thankfully I haven't gotten into any arguments with anyone around the whole why it's so divisive. I'm like, oh God. That's a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother thing, problem with fandoms, right? And that happens can be a problem with any fandom. But for some reason, Star Wars fans were like mad for some. Like, I'm like, you're living in the golden era of geek movies. Shut up and be grateful. Like, that's how I feel anyway. So I don't understand why the hate is so strong with some people. I actually really liked this movie, and I liked it more after the second time of watching it, because the first time I watched the film, I was actually so concerned with everyone in the film that I didn't really get to enjoy the ride. And what do I mean by that? So, spoiler alert: Han Solo died at the hand of his son in the end of the first in The Force Awakens. That rarely happens in a Disney movie. Where there is a death like that. And it was such a big character, and I don't know anyone who doesn't love Han Solo, and I was like, oh no. I knew it was coming from the second he walked out, and I think I said that before. I knew it was coming. But I was, because of that, and because we lost the late great Carrie Fisher, and I'm going to cry very hard not to tear up talking about her, I was concerned about Luke and Rey and Finn, and I was like, who's gonna die? Like, through the whole movie. So I actually like that. I like that there was an element of, oh shit, things are changing. And maybe that's why a lot of people didn't like it, because stuff changed in this movie. A lot happened. The definition of the Force was expanded. The Jedi were, Luke even like backhanded the Jedi a bunch of times, saying we failed. We need to end because we fucking suck. Well, he didn't say that, but he literally was like, why carry on something that was broken? And what an interesting reflection on religion in any way, shape or form. And I really want to do another video on a witch's view on the Force, and I'm totally going to do it. I've been writing some notes, but that's more of an educated piece where I want to take some time deconstructing the Force and the types of the Force and how that reflects in modern craft, and how I view it as well. So, but I loved that he was critical of the Force. So in the story, the rebels are the rebellion is trying to survive. That is really what the story, when you boil it down, is about. How do you how do you keep hope alive when you're being snuffed out. And then there's the main two characters in this film and in the franchise moving forward are Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, and Rey. And we have amazing supporting casts in Oscar Isaac's character, in Poe Dameron, and in Finn as well. So that they're pretty amazing, and Carrie Fisher was incredible. So they're running away from the First Order, and it happens very soon after the first one. And they're running away from the First Order, and they're losing ships very, very quickly, which leads to Poe trying to find a way to get onto the lead ship and get rid of a tracker. And then there's a whole scene on Canto Bight. So there's Canto Bight, the rebellion, and Rey's storyline, a lot of her stuff with Luke. So it does get chopped and changed around quite a lot. And I didn't dislike, I've read a lot of hate around Canto Bight, and I've watched a lot of people say a lot of things about Rose, which I think is like, man, why are you going to be so mean? Like, if you don't like something, don't. I actually didn't hate those scenes. I don't necessarily, like, yes, okay, maybe a little bit pandering to be like, animal cruelty is bad and greed is bad and money comes from somewhere and, you know, rich people are bad people. That's not such a great thing to think, but in some cases it's very true. I don't think that's a bad thing, because remember, we're talking about a target audience here. The target audience grew. You know, I was born in the early 80s, so, you know, I was born the year the Return of the Jedi came out. So I didn't watch those movies until I was older. But we've all grown. But remember, children are going to be watching this, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to show them that animal cruelty is bad and we should have compassion, and we can stand up when we see things that are wrong. And there was a little boy at the end, which is one thing I missed the first time I saw it, when he moves the broom. Because it was subtle. It was subtle. If you didn't know to look out for it, or you weren't paying attention completely to the gap between his hand and the broom. You know, one of the major successes of this film for me was that it opened the Force, and it opened the Star Wars universe up to more characters and more people outside of an Obi-Wan Kenobi, a Solo, or a Skywalker. Yes, Lucas said these movies were meant to be about the Skywalker line, and people are moaning now that, you know, not my Luke, and Luke is gone, and, you know, Rey has to be somebody. But Ben Solo, Kylo Ren is a Skywalker and a Solo. So it's still about those, he is the main protagonist, like the main antagonist now. So it's still about that family line. So I really feel like that argument is completely void. But one of the things I absolutely loved about this film was that the parentage of Rey was answered, at least for now, if J.J. Abrams doesn't decide to go screw you to Ryan Andrews and change it all. I really hope he doesn't. We find out that her parents were nothing. They were no one. She's not a secret Kenobi. She's not a secret Skywalker. And I loved that. I loved that it makes the Force more accessible, as they said. That it makes it more, it empowers, right? It doesn't disempower that you have to be someone and come from some bloodline. And if you've read any of the books, the Star Wars books or comics, they talk about Force-sensitive children and how they find them and things like that. And I had a discussion with a friend about how Snoke would have found Kylo Ren, and my theories behind that, because of how they use the Force. So I loved that. I loved that it opened the Star Wars universe up to a lot more players, per se. I love the criticism of the Jedi Order and how they failed. Yes, Luke sees it as he's quite a nihilist. He's quite like a doom everybody. I came here to die and I don't want anything to do with this battle anymore. And part of that, it feels a little bit like that hermit in the tarot, right? Like the monk that has disappeared and disengaged from the world. And it's selfish. It absolutely on the surface is selfish, but he's also dealing with his pain and his guilt and remorse and loss. And I liked that too. So there was a lot of controversy, and a lot of people threw shade at the way that Luke has turned from this hero into almost like an anti-hero or someone with faults, heaven forbid. But he's dealing with a lot of his shadow stuff. He does a lot of shadow work in this, and a lot of shadow side comes out in his guilt and his, definitely his guilt and shame. And how awesome that they show that they show how that can lead to feeling disarmed and disabled, and he shut himself off from the Force. You know, and part of that is, again, it's very spiritual of me, but part of that is like that denial of the hard stuff, or because of the hard stuff, shutting yourself off from your emotion and shutting yourself off from your spirituality and denying yourself the connections to the universe. And that's what he did. He shut himself off and turned himself away. So I actually liked a lot of this film. I enjoyed that a lot happened. I liked that it took it in different directions and it did unexpected things. I also love The Force Awakens. I love J.J. Abrams for the most part. I like a lot of his work. I had no problem with them retreading a lot of ground to pass the baton over, because it needed to restate its themes, direction, and where they wanted to go, and really give us some foundation. Because I for one don't hate the prequels, but I don't necessarily like them. I think the Clone Wars series, animated series, is like a gazillion times better. So I like that they re-establish it. We kind of got to fall in love again with this universe and a lot of characters, and we got introduced to them without it being a complete turn with new people. I think it would have been a harder integration for a lot of fans. But back to The Last Jedi. A lot of it was beautiful. The fight at the end, it was long. Yes, like the third act went for a while. A lot of it was stunning though. It was like a beautifully shot film. You know, the salt flats of Bolivia, which where I have been there, being used for that beautiful Crete, I think it was at the end, with the red earth underneath it. You know, the crystal critters, as they're called, were stunning and well used. The porgs were great. I thought they were used in a really beautiful way, that it was just like a little bit of comic relief, but it wasn't overdone. I'm glad that they didn't show a lot of the creatures in the trailers that are on the island, the Jedi Island that Luke is on. So we got a bit of a surprise there with the caretakers and the almost like the sea lion looking animals with the blue milk, throwback to the originals. The first time I saw it, I really struggled with Kylo Ren's character because I felt like he was a whiny baby. I feel like someone needs to slap him. I almost feel like Leia should just be like, just backhand him and be like, fucking grow up. But the second time I saw it, I didn't hate him as much. It was kind of like the first time I read the 5th book in the Harry Potter series. I was like, holy heck, Harry is being such a whinger. But then I read it again, and I've read it more than once, and it's not as hard the second time to get a lot of where he's coming from. It was just like a lot. So I felt like Kylo Ren for me was a lot easier to empathize with the second time, especially because when you go back and watch it again, you know the outcome of a lot of things. So therefore it's like I feel like you see the conflict in him more the second time because of what he says about his father, how he struggles with letting go of his mum, his indecision, and really the connection that he has with Rey. And I feel like that is going to be something that is very much explored again in the third one, even though she shut him out at the end of The Last Jedi. That connection is still there. And sure, there is a big thing around, are they going to give her a romantic? Is there going to be a romance there? And is that part of the Jedi evolving? Because Jedi weren't meant to have children and meant to fall in love and have kids, even though Luke in the books had a wife. But it depends on what canon and blah, 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 blah. But maybe that is a way forward. I've always felt that was a bit of a broken thing of the Jedi, not to allow love, but who knows? Out of all of them, because I reckon that everyone is straight up in love with her, like the way that Poe Dameron was like, hey, so you're Rey, hey? what's up? I felt like I feel like everyone's kind of feeling on her a little bit. She could have her choose out of Finn, Kylo if they do move there, and it's kind of the underlying thing is there. I think they've left that open for a very good reason, and it's going to be up to J.J. Abrams, who's coming back for the third film, to decide that. He's also going to have to decide what to do with Luke. I'll come back to that. So Kylo Ren was a lot. I actually enjoyed his performance, Adam Driver's performance, a lot more the second time I watched it. One of my favorite scenes of the whole movie was the fight with Rey and Kylo and the Praetorian Guards. I was just like, this was exquisitely shot. It was beautifully done. And like when he catches the lightsaber, it's like, boom. Oh, so good. So good. Like these two are the yin yang. They are the mirrors of each other. They are the shadow and light in the universe. And really, are we going to get the grey Jedi at the end? Are we going to get that integration and wholeness through balance in oneself, balancing the Force in oneself? And I think that's something that we've been wanting to see for a long time, and a lot of people in the Star Wars fandom have spoken about. And grey Jedi are an absolute thing in Star Wars canon, so it'll be interesting, and that's what I mean, why I want to do a video on the Force from a witch's point of view, or at least one witch's point of view, my witch's point of view. I loved so Kylo Ren, as much as I feel that he would have benefited from more connection and more time with his parents, and maybe that would have helped him not become such a dark side fanatic, and unable to deal with his emotions, because that's very much what a lot of his stuff is about. I understand why they haven't gone that way. You know, you need to have conflict, and from a mother's point of view, one of the parts where Luke has a moment of, I'm gonna, you know, can I save these again, these children from the darkness in my nephew, and it could be very hard for people to swallow that, because of you know, Luke is a hero. But for people who haven't watched or read or don't maybe understand, you know, Order 66, or the fact that he knew what his father did and how many people he killed, and he wiped out the Jedi. He helped wipe them out. You know, he got to, and then being a Force sensitive person, probably could feel that in that moment when he touched his son's heart and found the darkness there. That moment was a moment, and we got to see that moment through a few different lenses, and that's why I don't struggle with that as much as I did the first time around, because it's like, okay, it was a moment, he was feeling it. Like if you're an empath and you feel things, you're like, oh shit, and then all those things from that moment carried out the way they did. So, and while I would have thought that he would have contacted Leia and said, you know, probably before it got to that point, and said, you need to come and, you know, fucking talk to your son and deal with this shit. And they don't really deal with it in the Bloodline. They don't talk about that in the Bloodline book. So while from a mother's perspective, I would have been like, that should have probably have happened as far as like a real world solution. It's not what they needed in order for you need conflict, you need something. So I can kind of forgive that as well. I thought Mark Hamill was amazing. I thought he did such a great job giving us a grouchy old Oscar the Grouch Luke, a disenchanted, a broken, a grieving, I feel like a failure Luke. I really liked that he committed 100% to his performance, even though he has said he wasn't comfortable. I don't know if he's changed his mind, comfortable with the way that Ryan Andrews interpreted Luke and where they took the story. I love the ending. I really believe that we haven't seen the last of him either. Now that he's a Force ghost, because those are totally a thing. People, he said, I'll be seeing you around, kid. And I feel like he's not done with Kylo, and he's not finished trying to right that wrong that he helped create. And he's got such great love for his sister. And that moment where R2-D2 pulled out his ace and showed him was just such a beautiful moment. I don't feel like that was pandering at all. that was just trying to remind Luke of who he was and who he is and why he's doing what he's doing and what started all of this. So I thought that was beautifully done. I think that Carrie Fisher was amazing in this. I love her. It was so many moments were so powerful in a way where it had a different nuance because of the fact that she passed away, and it was tragedy. It was awful that we lost Leia so young, and lost Carrie so young. You know, when Holo says to her, "May the Force be with you always," it was like, oh, and when Luke kisses her on the forehead, there were a lot of goodbyes in the movie that you could see were obviously not intentional at the time, but just such a heartbreaking thing. I had no problem with her using the Force in this movie. Did it look a little weird? Okay, maybe. But it has been said many times that the Force comes to those in dire need, and when you're dying, that is a pretty dire need. It is acknowledged and explored and at least spoken about in books around her ability to use the Force. The Emperor himself says there is another one talking about Leia. So she has always been as powerful in the Force as Luke. She was just untrained. And in Bloodline, she talks about how she chooses not to use it and has chosen not to develop her Force skills. Doesn't mean they're not there. So that's a load of bullshit. Anyone getting mad about that, because it's just stupid. My only kind of holes in the movie were like, and this comes from Bennett Waltculture, I think it was. It's like, why don't they just, if the ships are like this, why don't they just intercept with the ship coming the other way? Game over, checkmate. It's also like on the planet, which is round, why when they leave the planet are they always happen to run into another ship? Like, planets are pretty big. You can go on the ground or low to get away from the orbiting the ship and go the other way. It's just a very, I don't know. Another thing I thought was a bit of a hole was why weren't there shields on the bridge, the command bridge, where all your commanders are? Like, that seems like a pretty big no-no. But then watching it again, I'm like, oh, I think they said put all the shields to the back because they were getting kind of hammered. I don't want to say that, that's dirty. They were getting shot at from the First Order, so maybe they had to move their shields to the back. So I was like, okay. I want to know a couple of things. I want to know where Ben Solo's blue lightsaber was. Did he leave it? He must use something to kill all those children. Where are the Knights of Ren? Because it said he took a few of the students, the Knights of Ren, and left, and we saw them in a vision. Where are they? Are they hunting down other Force-sensitive people? Are they working for the First Order? I want to know. J.J. Abrams, let me know. I think that Gwendolyn Christie's character, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, Phasma, was severely underutilized. But remembering that Snoke and Phasma were creations by J.J. Abrams, and Ryan could do whatever he wanted with them. So I don't know. I don't feel that may have been what J.J. Abrams wanted for those characters, what happened in the movie. But we got what we got. So that's a real shame because I love her and Brianna Tarth all the way. So that was a bit of a shame. Finn didn't get a lot of character development in a way of heroics. Well, no, maybe he did. I actually was like, when he was going to sacrifice himself with the cannon, thought that was really powerful. I didn't want him to die. I really, really like Boyega. So I was like, oh no, not another one. And then Rory's obviously saving him. The kiss was hella awkward and looked like that was completely one-sided. But that's a little thing there. I liked that I felt like in him being saved, part of the power of him not running away anymore was taken away, and that's part of his arc. And the same discussion that I had with my friend after I went and saw it the second time, he kind of reminds me of Ron Weasley a little bit when Ron leaves partway through their Deathly Hallows and leaves Harry and Hermione because he just can't anymore. And that running, that fight or flight, that security and that instinct to run, and it's running away from himself in a way. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with his character in the third one. but I liked the way that moved and changed in the movie. And I'm not a hater on the way that Snoke was dispatched. Snoke said himself that as the darkness rose, the light would come to meet it. And we just got him out of the way. He was like a red herring. The Emperor didn't do very much. He was just a dude. So, Ben was shown, finish your training and kill. And that's how they finish their Sith training, is they murder. All the murders of the Sith, and he killed his master. And that is also, if you are a part, you like a lot of Star Wars, that's a part of the Ruler 2, and yeah, they're pretty good at dispatching each other, basically, the Sith, which is pretty stupid, but anyway. So I have no problem with that, because we need Rey and Ben Solo or Kylo Ren to be at the same level of power and importance, and I don't mind that was a red herring, especially again watching it the second time around, knowing where we've gone. And I like that we've left, both sides are really hurting now. It wasn't like Empire Strikes Back, where it was left in quite a dark, which is a great movie, by the way, if you had noticed. I'm a bit of a fan. So I like that Kylo has been left. He's going to be pissed because, again, the way that the inability to deal with his emotions, he's going to be so raging mad after being duped by Luke and Rey and his mother and everyone getting away, and the failure, and Hux is like, ooh, Hux. Now, you got to think that when someone tries to murder you twice while you're sleeping, there is something fundamentally wrong with you. So Hux, I think, is going to play a major role in his undoing, or at least there's a big, they've sowed a lot of seeds there with the discontent that Hux has, and the hatred that Hux has for Kylo Ren, and the lack of respect. Yes, he fears him because of his power. You'd be stupid not to, for someone who could choke you to death using the Force. But he also disrespects him as a leader and a commander. So that's going to be interesting to see. But and then we had huge losses on the rebel side, and Poe learning to be a leader, and I liked that. So we, learning to be discerning and thinking before he leaps. Very much going from that Knight of Swords of like charge into that Knight of Pentacles of like let's wait and see, or at least the King of Swords, where they're more discerning about their choices. Are they going to jump ahead in time to deal with the loss of our princess? I don't know. Will they use old footage or footage they've already shot from the other film and make her into a holo somewhere being hidden from the First Order on another planet? That's another option I thought of. I don't know what they're going to do there, but yeah, it's going to be interesting moving forward. But I actually really enjoyed the film. I like that we're pushing things in different directions in the Star Wars universe, that it's moving forward. I can't wait to see what J.J. Abrams does. As I mentioned, these videos are more of a discussion about the movie and less about what actually happens, and it's less of a review and more discussing different aspects of the characters and things like that. But I actually really enjoyed it, especially the second time around. And I think part of the other side around critiquing or thinking too much about anything, whether it's a fandom or overthinking anything in life, is that it takes us away from enjoying and being present to what it is. I don't remember watching E.T. or Batteries Not Included, which is an amazing film, or the first Star Wars movies, and nitpicking everything. And being really cynical about it. It's like movies should be joyful and fun, and I would rather enjoy things and be grateful for the fact that I get to go see all of these comic book movies and movies I never thought would be put on screen in my lifetime, and be given so much love. So yeah, I loved it. I enjoyed it. I would love to hear what you thought about the movie. I'm all for the badassness that is a female Jedi lead. Makes me so very happy. What did you think? Let me know, and I will see you next time. I am going to go see Black Panther. You can try and stop me. Ain't gonna happen. I'm very excited for that. So I'll definitely be doing Black Panther this year, Infinity Wars, as well, and a story on like I said, The Witch's View and the Force. There's a few other movies that I'm probably going to geek out about as well. Thanks for watching. This was a long one. And may the Force be with you. Hot stuff. And thank you again.